How exactly did Zak Brown take McLaren from a failing team all the way to winning the Constructors' Championship, and can he repeat this insane result this year? Today, we'll find out. Zak Brown was actually decent at racing. By the late 80s, he was absolutely dominating karting championships, 22 wins in just 4 years. The path to Formula 1 seemed clear, so it was time to move up to single-seaters. That meant going to Europe. Brown found himself sleeping on a friend's floor in Sheffield, a penniless teenager grinding through Formula Ford. He managed some modest success here and there, but gradually the harsh reality began to sink in. His talent alone wasn't going to carry him to an F1 drive. Actually, Brown would later admit that he was told to stop driving. This hurt his ego massively, but there was no way around it. He just was not good enough to make a living as a driver. In 1995, barely in his 20s, Brown had to make the transition a driver to a dealmaker. He'd always been a smooth talker with a natural marketing instinct, a skills honed from the constant hustle of landing sponsors to fund his racing. Just Marketing International started as a one-man operation, with Brown brokering sponsorship deals across Formula 1, NASCAR, and IndyCar. It seems trivial now, but at that time, Brown was building something unprecedented. He was creating the largest motorsports marketing agency in the world, becoming the guy who connected boardrooms with pit lanes. By 2011, the racing world has taken notice. A Guardian profile dubbed him a part-time racing driver who could become the most influential man in his sport. The article wasn't far off, as Brown never completely walked away from racing. In 2009, he co-founded United Autosports. While his day job was about deals and dollars, weekends might find him in a racing suit, hustling an LMP2 car around Spa. It was as if he couldn't contain his competitive fire even as his empire grew. He needed that fix of actual racing.
My first 3 months at McLaren have been awesome.
Then McLaren came calling. The storied team was in crisis. After decades under Ron Dennis, McLaren was hemorrhaging talent, money, and results. No wins since 2012, no titles since the late 90s. The Honda engine partnership had imploded spectacularly, leaving Fernando Alonso screaming, Dennis's reign had basically ended in a boardroom coup, so the team was a mess. And that's exactly why McLaren needed Zak Brown. He was the dynamic American marketer who could bring both sponsorship money and a cultural transformation. Some skeptics smirked that he was just good at getting sponsors, but McLaren needed exactly that money, and, hopefully, a complete shakeup of their toxic culture. By 2018, after a restructuring, Brown became CEO of McLaren Racing, and when he arrived at working, the team was still living in denial. The assumption was simple. Honda was the problem. Once they ditched those unreliable power units for Renault engines in 2018, McLaren would magically return to the front. Brown recalls there was a belief that any performance issues could be blamed on the car's engine manufacturer. When the Renault switch failed to deliver the expected results, it was a sobering wake-up call for everybody. The car was still woefully off pace despite having a half-decent engine. Brown quickly realized the rot was internal. McLaren's culture had grown arrogant and complacent, addicted to pointing fingers at anyone but themselves. Midway through 2018, after another flop at the French GP, Brown pulled the trigger on a sweeping leadership shakeup. But this was where Brown's approach differed dramatically from the traditional F1 autocrat model. Instead of ruling through fear and secrecy like Ron Dennis, Brown embraced radical transparency. He candidly told the press that McLaren had failed to hit their targets and needed to completely reform its ways. McLaren racing director Eric Boulliard resigned under pressure, and with him gone, Brown set about rebuilding McLaren's racing operation almost from scratch. He persuaded Andreas Seidel to join as McLaren's F1 managing director in 2019 and swiftly hired James Key as technical director to rejuvenate car design. However, the real revolution was cultural. Brown instilled what he calls a no-blame culture at McLaren. Mistakes would no longer trigger witch hunts and scapegoating. It sounds almost touchy-feely for the cutthroat F1 world, but this cultural shift was critical to unlocking McLaren's potential. Engineers became willing to take risks when they no longer feared getting their heads bitten off for failures. During this time, Brown also brought back the papaya orange livery, a symbolic reconnection with McLaren's heritage that fans loved. Soon, his rebuild started paying dividends. Blue-chip partners like Coca-Cola joined the McLaren portfolio. The influx of sponsorship money didn't just fill McLaren's coffers, it enabled the team to fully exploit the cost cap. By 2019, Brown's project was showing results. At the Brazilian Grand Prix, McLaren scored its first podium in 2,072 days. Carlos Sainz's charge to third brought tears of joy to mechanics who had endured years of mediocrity at that point. McLaren climbed from 9th in the standings in 2017 to 4th in 2019, then 3rd in 2020, their best result in nearly a decade. However, the ultimate validation was still to come.
Really happy with our driver lineup. Carlos and Lando are doing an outstanding job. They're driving for the team.
Throughout this rebuilding process, Brown was making crucial decisions in the driver market that would define McLaren's future. Almost immediately after taking charge, Brown bid farewell to the disillusioned Fernando Alonso and put faith in youth. For 2019, he promoted 19-year-old Lando Norris from McLaren's junior program, pairing him with Carlos Sainz. This gave McLaren a fresh, hungry lineup with an upbeat team vibe that had been missing for years. Brown nurtured Norris's cheeky personality rather than stifling it, encouraging his Twitch streaming in a departure from McLaren's traditionally stiff image. When Sainz left for Ferrari in 2021, Brown made an ambitious hire, signing Daniel Ricciardo, the 7-time Grand Prix winner. On paper, they were a dream team that delivered immediate dividends. That Monza victory was McLaren's first win in nearly a decade. However, Ricciardo's overall performance lagged far behind Norris's, creating an agonizing dilemma for Brown. By mid-2022, Brown faced the difficult decision to cut short Ricciardo's contract. It was a messy divorce, and I've made an in-depth video about Daniel Ricciardo's career. You should check it out. By the way, I'm trying to hit 35,000 subscribers by the end of summer, so if you like this video so far, don't forget to subscribe.
Trophy. Oh, Zak's going to take it. No!
Brown already had a replacement in mind though. Poaching Oscar Piastri from Alpine wouldn't be easy, but such chances rarely come twice. Alpine's young star was locked into what seemed like a secure development plan, but Alpine's management had grown complacent, failing to lock him into a binding race seat guarantee. When Oscar's contract confusion surfaced, Brown made his move quietly by convincing Piastri's camp that McLaren offered not just a seat, but a path to grow and win. He used every ounce of his credibility to pull together legal arguments, media positioning, and internal alignment, all while maintaining the image that McLaren was simply looking after its own future. To outsiders, it looked ruthless. To Brown, it was just smart business. When Alpine publicly announced Oscar would race for them in 2023 without his consent, the young Aussie famously rebuked them on Twitter, triggering a contractual tug-of-war. The FIA's Contract Recognition Board ultimately sided with McLaren, but the entire move was wild. By 2023, Brown's driver gambles had created a lineup envied by many teams. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, two exceptionally quick young drivers locked in with multi-year deals. The stage was set for McLaren's return to championship contention. However, first, Brown would have to navigate some significant speed bumps.
The next 60 years, one step at a time, and hopefully we'll have a strong season this year.
Just when it seemed like McLaren's upward trajectory was unstoppable, 2022 delivered a harsh reminder that nothing in Formula One comes easy. The first year of F1's new technical regulations saw McLaren stumble badly. A brake design flaw in testing put them on the back foot. The team slipped to 5th in the standings, behind a resurging Alpine. For Brown, who had spent years convincing sponsors, drivers, and fans that McLaren was on an inevitable march back to the top, it was a humbling setback. By winter 2022, McLaren admitted it had missed development targets for the new car. In a remarkably candid move that epitomized Brown's transparent leadership style, he penned an open letter to fans before the 2023 season even began, warning them that the start would be rough. Sure enough, the first races of 2023 were a disaster. McLaren had the slowest car in Bahrain, leaving Brown frustrated and embarrassed, as he openly admitted to the media. Norris made 6 pit stops to manage reliability issues and finished 17th and last of the finishing drivers. At the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, Norris was eliminated in Q1 for the first time since 2019 after hitting the wall, then suffered damage from debris and again finished 17th. But rather than hide behind corporate speak or deflect blame, Brown fronted up and promised swift action. Behind the scenes, Brown commissioned an internal review that concluded McLaren's technical leadership structure wasn't effective. The finger-pointing culture he thought he'd eliminated was creeping back. Brown didn't dither, though. In March 2023, he executed a mini reset, removing technical director James Key and replacing him with a new three-headed department structure. McLaren introduced its first major upgrade of 2023 at the Austrian Grand Prix, described as a B-spec car with a fully redesigned floor, side pod, and engine cover. Norris praised his team for fast-tracking 50% of the updates to his car. The transformation was immediate. From being backmarkers at the start of the season, McLaren suddenly emerged as podium contenders. The team scored its first podium in over 5 years when Norris finished second at the British Grand Prix in July. By the Circuit of the Americas in October, McLaren was leading races for multiple stints, something that caught even the team by surprise.
That was simply lovely.
Zak's just fucking annoying.
Singapore brought another podium for Norris, finishing just under a second behind race winner Carlos Sainz Jr. The momentum continued building through the final races of 2023. Norris secured consecutive podiums at Singapore, Japan, and the United States, establishing McLaren as a genuine force. Most importantly, the team discovered they had found a development direction that actually worked. It's a wild stat, but every McLaren's upgrade since the Austria package had worked immediately and as expected, a stark contrast to their competitors who were struggling with correlating wind tunnel data to real-world performance. By season's end, McLaren had climbed from the back of the grid to 4th in the Constructors' Championship, setting the stage for their 2024 assault on the title.
I think it's very early days. I also think it's a race that we're all in together.
The successful 2023 turnaround wasn't just about performance, it was about infrastructure. Their new wind tunnel was ready for operations in August, and models began to be tested that same month. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that this was crucial for 2024 development. McLaren began development of the MCL38 in July 2023 and reported good correlation as well as cost and time savings from their new facility. No longer would they need to ship parts to Germany for testing in Toyota's wind tunnel. Still, McLaren entered 2024 as the 4th fastest in a competitive field, with the team working on key components in the background that would bring the MCL38 up to full specification. The early races were solid but unspectacular until Miami changed everything. The Miami Grand Prix marked McLaren's first major upgrade package of 2024, addressing the car's main weaknesses: long, low-speed corners, tire degradation, and aerodynamic efficiency. While the upgrade wasn't as dramatic as the Austria package that transformed 2023, it provided a noticeable step forward. The timing was perfect as well. Norris managed to secure his maiden Formula One victory in Miami, a breakthrough moment that had been years in the making. And of course, when it rains, it pours. By season's end, McLaren had secured 6 wins and 21 podiums in the 22-race season, the kind of consistency that wins championships. Norris added victories at Zandvoort, Singapore, and Abu Dhabi to his Miami triumph, while Piastri delivered breakthrough wins in Hungary and Azerbaijan.
Going to be competitive when it's hot. Here's your teammate. I hope so. Zak's broke my rear.
Of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing. The Hungarian Grand Prix provided Piastri with his maiden victory, though after leading most of the race, a pit stop strategy mix-up saw Norris emerge ahead on track. Norris wasn't keen on following orders to hand back the position, and this provided McLaren's first major test of managing 2 competitive drivers. Strategy kept being a real horn in McLaren's side throughout the season, with the team making mistakes at Silverstone, Monza, Hungary, and Sao Paulo. The Sao Paulo Grand Prix proved particularly costly for Norris's individual championship hopes. Starting from pole position, multiple setbacks, including an unfortunate red flag timing and subsequent mistakes in treacherous conditions, saw him slump to 6th place, while Max Verstappen climbed from 17th to victory. And what a drive that was. Yet these setbacks still allowed the team to secure the Constructors' Championship. For Brown, this win was validation on the grandest stage. However, celebrations aside, Brown's mind was already churning on the next goal: winning the Drivers' Championship with one of his own drivers.
We didn't think we could do it, and it was close there at the end, just a few laps short.
Following the 2024 season, McLaren made strategic changes, promoting Ollie Cartledge to lead race strategists and strategy operations, acknowledging that improvement was needed to retain their crown in 2025. The early signs were promising. Both Norris and Piastri came out of the gates flying. By mid-season, McLaren found themselves in the enviable position of leading both championships, while their drivers battled each other for supremacy. However, managing two alphas fighting for the ultimate prize is not easy. The dynamic between the two drivers has evolved significantly since 2024. While Norris maintained his qualifying advantage in 2024, winning the head-to-head battle 18-3, Piastri showed clear improvement throughout his season. Piastri has this relaxed intensity, drawing comparisons to Max Verstappen, which I think really helps him this season. Zak Brown continues to insist they have two number ones, determined that McLaren not repeat the mistakes of past teams that let internal politics derail them. Yet the pressure is mounting, and the epic driver battle Brown anticipated arrived sooner than expected. At the 2025 Canadian Grand Prix, with just a few laps to go, Norris and Piastri collided while contesting 4th place. Norris had fresher tires and was desperately trying to overtake his teammate after a late pit stop. Piastri was defending hard to maximize his points haul in his championship fight. As they went side by side through the final chicane, Norris misjudged the gap. The orange cars tangled on the straight, Lando tagging the back of Piastri's McLaren and smashing into the pit wall. Norris's car was destroyed race over. Piastri survived and kept going, salvaging P4 and crucial points, extending his championship lead over Norris to 22 points. In the immediate aftermath, I honestly braced for McLaren's garage to erupt. After all, we've seen inter-team collisions tear apart relationships before. However, Norris immediately took the blame, calling himself an idiot on team radio and apologizing profusely for hitting his teammate.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's all my bad. Stupid for me.
Piastri, mature beyond his 24 years, accepted it with a nod, later saying, "These things happen when we race hard." Meanwhile, Brown took to social media with a message that spoke volumes about his leadership philosophy. "Appreciate the candor, Lando. Solid race, Oscar. We learn, we go again, together." This response encapsulated McLaren's ethos under Brown unity and forward focus. No finger pointing. So, does Oscar Piastri have what it takes to become world champion this year? Brown certainly thinks so. "I think he's only going to get stronger," Zak said when Piastri took the points lead. Piastri's temperament has impressed everyone in the paddock. Even Max Verstappen recently commented that Piastri has a certain calmness and ability to handle the stress of a title fight, calling it a key trait that could help Oscar go all the way. That's high praise from a 4-time world champion. I would argue that Oscar will have the upper hand just because Norris just can't help but sabotage himself every time he gets anywhere close to winning. As we look toward the remainder of 2025 and beyond, Brown's McLaren story continues to be written. In less than a decade, he took a fallen giant and brought it back to championship contention, a feat many doubted was possible in the modern era. However, knowing Zak, he isn't content with just one Constructors title. The big prize eluding McLaren remains the Drivers' Championship, and 2025 might be their best shot in decades to grab it. If Brown pulls off the double championship, it would firmly cement his legacy alongside the likes of Ron Dennis. It would also mark McLaren's first driver's title since Lewis Hamilton in 2008, a drought that's lasted far too long for one of F1's greatest teams. As Brown himself might say, with that characteristic grin, the best is yet to come. So do you think McLaren will actually get